I'll never forget the look on my son's face when he walked into that conference room and saw me sitting at the head of the table. Darnell's mouth fell open like a catfish on dry land, and his wife Keisha actually stumbled backward into the doorway. The HR director, a young sister named Yvette, looked down at her papers and then back up at me with confusion written all over her face. "Mrs. Thornhill?" she said carefully. "These are the employees from the shipping department that you wanted to meet with." I smiled, folding my hands on top of the mahogany table. My daughter Keisha had gone pale, which was something to see on her honey-brown skin. "Oh, I know exactly who they are, baby. That's my son Darnell and his wife, also named Keisha. Y'all can come on in and have a seat." Darnell found his voice first. "Mama? What? What are you doing here?" "What does it look like, son? I'm conducting business." I gestured to the empty chairs. "Sit down. We have a lot to discuss." That's when I saw it dawn on them. That's when they realized what had happened. And that's when my daughter-in-law looked like she might faint dead away. Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this all started, about 8 months ago, right after I buried my sweet Raymond. Raymond Thornhill was the love of my life for 43 years. We met at a church picnic back in 1980 when I was just 22 and he was 25. He had the prettiest smile and the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at New Hope Baptist Church, with nothing but love in our hearts and about $200 between us. Raymond worked hard his whole life, started out sweeping floors at Morrison Shipping Company and worked his way up to warehouse supervisor. I worked too, cleaned houses for wealthy families up in the nice part of town, and later I got my certification to work as a home health aide. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and we had our 2 children, Darnell and my daughter Shanice. The ring Raymond gave me on our wedding day wasn't much by most people's standards. It was a simple gold band with 3 small diamonds set in it. But Raymond had saved for 8 months to buy it, putting away money from his check every single week. When he slipped it on my finger and said, "Ada Mae, you're my forever," I felt like the richest woman in the world. We raised our kids in a little house on the east side. Raymond coached Darnell's basketball team. I made sure both kids were in church every Sunday, sang in the choir, went to every school event. We had fish fries in the summer, dominoes games that went late into the night with friends, and Christmas mornings full of laughter even when money was tight. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and it was good. When Raymond got sick 3 years ago, it happened fast. The cancer was aggressive, the doctors said. Stage 4 by the time they caught it. We fought it together with everything we had, but some battles you just can't win. He passed away on a Tuesday morning in February, holding my hand, with our kids by his side. The grief nearly broke me. 75 years old and suddenly alone after more than 4 decades of marriage. But I had my church family at New Hope. I had my 2 best friends, Wanda and Gladys, who checked on me every single day. And I had my grandchildren, Zion, Aaliyah, and little Kamari. Most of all, I had my memories. And I had that ring. After Raymond passed, I stopped wearing the ring on my finger. My hands had gotten so thin, and I was afraid of losing it. Instead, I kept it in a small wooden box on my dresser, right next to Raymond's picture. Every morning I'd touch that box and say good morning to my husband. Every night I'd do the same before bed. It was my connection to him, my reminder that I had been loved completely by a good man. The kids seemed supportive at first. Darnell came by every week, helped with yard work, fixed things around the house. Shanice called regularly, brought the grandkids to visit. I thought I was blessed. Then the comments started. "Mama, this house is too big for you by yourself," Darnell said one Sunday after church. We were sitting in my kitchen, the one Raymond had remodeled with his own 2 hands, eating the pot roast I'd made. "I manage just fine," I told him. "But what if you fall? What if something happens and nobody's here? Keisha chimed in, spooning greens onto her plate. We worry about you. The Lord has kept me this long, I said. I'm not helpless. Nobody said you were helpless, Mama, Shanice added, exchanging a look with her brother that I caught but pretended not to see. We just want to make sure you're taken care of. That's when they started suggesting I move in with one of them. Darnell had a basement apartment I could use, they said. I'd be around family, they said. It would be so much easier, they said. What they didn't say was that they wanted my house. The neighborhood had changed over the years, gotten nicer, property values had gone up. My little house that Raymond and I bought for $35,000 back in 1982 was now worth close to $400,000. I'm old, but I'm not stupid. I told them no, politely but firmly. This was my home, mine and Raymond's, and I wasn't leaving it unless the good Lord carried me out. That's when things changed. The visits became less frequent. The phone calls dropped off. When I did see them, there was always an edge to the conversation, always some mention of money, how expensive things were getting, how hard it was to make ends meet, how their jobs at Morrison Shipping Company, the same company Raymond had given 30 years of his life to, just didn't pay enough anymore. I helped when I could. 100 here for Darnell's light bill, 200 there for Shanice's car repair. I was living on Raymond's pension and my Social Security, but I managed my money carefully. Raymond had always been smart about finances, and he'd taught me well. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Wednesday in late September. I'd gone to my weekly Bible study at Sister Wanda's house. We studied, we prayed, we ate Wanda's famous lemon pound cake, and talked about everything under the sun. I got home around 7 that evening, feeling spiritually full and grateful. The moment I walked into my bedroom, I knew something was wrong. The air felt different, disturbed somehow. My dresser drawer was slightly open, which wasn't like me. I always closed everything properly. My heart started beating faster as I walked over to the dresser. The wooden box was there, right where it always was next to Raymond's picture. But when I opened it, my hands started shaking. The ring was gone. I searched everywhere. I dumped out the box, checked every drawer, looked under the bed, in the bathroom, in every room of the house. Nothing. I called Wanda, and she and Gladys came right over. We searched together for 2 hours. The ring was gone, and deep in my heart, I knew it hadn't just disappeared. I had given Darnell a key to my house for emergencies. Just Darnell. He was my oldest, my son, and I trusted him. I sat up all night in Raymond's recliner, the one that still smelled faintly like his cologne, and I cried. Not just because the ring was gone, but because I knew what it meant. I knew who had taken it. And I knew that the children I had raised, loved, and sacrificed for had betrayed me in the deepest way possible. The next morning I called Darnell. My voice was steady when I asked him if he'd been by the house. There was a pause, just long enough to confirm what I already knew. Yeah, Mama. Yesterday. I stopped by to check on things while you were out. Why? My ring is missing. Another pause. Your ring? You know which ring, Darnell. Your father's wedding ring to me. Oh, Mama, that's terrible. Maybe you misplaced it? You know, sometimes. I didn't misplace it. It was in the box on my dresser where it always is. Now it's gone. Well, I didn't see no ring, Mama. Maybe you should call the police. Could have been a break-in. The ease with which he lied to me hurt worse than the theft itself. I didn't call the police. I didn't confront him. I just said, maybe you're right, and hung up. 3 days later, Darnell and Keisha showed up at my door with Shanice and her husband, a man named Curtis, who I'd never fully trusted. They had smiles on their faces and an envelope in Darnell's hand. Mama, we got something for you, Darnell said, sitting down on my couch like nothing was wrong. We know things have been tight since Daddy passed, and we know you've been helping us out when we need it. So we all pooled our money together to give you something. He handed me the envelope. Inside was $1,500 in cash. "We wanted to make sure you have a little cushion," Shanice said, her voice sweet as pie. "For emergencies and things." I looked at that money and I knew exactly where it came from. They had pawned my ring, the ring Raymond had worked so hard to buy me, the ring that represented our love and our life together. And now they were standing in my living room, lying to my face, giving me a fraction of what they'd gotten for it. I could have screamed. I could have thrown them out. I could have called them out right then and there. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the spirit. Maybe it was just the survival instinct that comes from living 75 years as a black woman in America. But I felt a calm settle over me, cold and clear as creek water. "Thank you, babies," I said, folding the envelope and setting it on the coffee table. "This is real thoughtful of you." They stayed for dinner. I fed them Raymond's favorite, smothered pork chops with rice and gravy, green beans, and cornbread. I watched them eat food I prepared while they smiled and laughed and pretended they hadn't robbed me. When they left, I locked the door behind them, went to my bedroom, and looked at Raymond's picture. "They don't know who they're messing with, baby," I said to his smiling face. "You always said I was stronger than I looked. Time to prove you right." The next morning, I went to see my friend Gladys. Gladys had worked in finance for 40 years before she retired, and she was sharp as a tack. I told her everything. "Baby, I'm so sorry," she said, holding my hand across her kitchen table. "What are you going to do?" "I need your help," I said. "Raymond left me his pension. I got my Social Security. I got about $60,000 saved up that the kids don't know about. And now I got this $1,500 from them. I want to invest it." Gladys raised an eyebrow. "Invest it? Ada, at our age?" "Morrison Shipping Company," I said. "The place where Raymond worked for 30 years. The place where Darnell and Keisha and Curtis all work now. I want to know everything about it." Gladys's eyes widened, and then slowly, a smile spread across her face. "Oh, I see. Let me make some calls." What Gladys found out over the next week was interesting. Morrison Shipping Company was family-owned, had been for 3 generations, but Old Man Morrison had died 2 years back, and his son Gerald was running it into the ground. The company was struggling, stock prices were down, and rumor had it that Gerald was looking to sell. "The company's not publicly traded," Gladys explained, "but there's been talk of a private equity firm looking to buy it. If that happens, they'll restructure everything. People might lose their jobs." I sat with that information for a long time. Then I made a decision that would change everything. I contacted a lawyer, a sharp young brother named Julian Hayes, who went to New Hope and had helped Sister Wanda with her will. I explained what I wanted to do. His eyes got wider and wider as I talked. "Mrs. Thornhill, this is ambitious, very ambitious. Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I told him. "It's going to take most of your savings. And there's no guarantee. I understand the risk. Set it up." And that's what he did. Julian Hayes, with his connections and his business sense that reminded me of a young Raymond, helped me navigate the complex world of business acquisitions. We formed an LLC. We reached out to Gerald Morrison through back channels. We made an offer. It took months of negotiations, months of paperwork, months of me pretending to my children that everything was normal while I was making the boldest move of my life. My kids kept coming around, kept taking. Darnell needed money for his car. Shanice needed help with the grandkids' school fees. I gave it to them, small amounts from my regular accounts while I protected my investment. They had no idea what was coming. The deal closed on a Friday in May. I became the majority owner of Morrison Shipping Company. Me, Ada Mae Thornhill, a 75-year-old woman who had spent her life cleaning houses and taking care of others. Julian structured it so that a management company would handle day-to-day operations, but major decisions came through me. The first major decision I made was to call a meeting with all department heads and senior employees. I wanted to introduce myself to the company Raymond had loved, the company that now belonged to me. And I specifically requested that Darnell Thornhill, Keisha Thornhill, and Curtis Wade from the shipping department be present. Which brings me back to that conference room, to the look on my son's face, to the moment when everything I'd been planning finally came together. "Mama," Darnell said again, his voice shaking now. "What is this? What's going on?" I looked at my son, at the daughter-in-law who had helped him betray me, at Curtis, who was married to my daughter. Yvette from HR looked confused, sensing the tension but not understanding it. "What's going on?" I said calmly. "Is that I'm the new owner of Morrison Shipping Company. As of last Friday, this company belongs to me." The room went silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning. That's impossible," Keisha whispered. How could I afford it?" I finished for her. "Well, that's an interesting story. You see, I had some money saved. Money your father and I had been careful with over the years. Money I'd invested wisely. And then I got a little windfall, $1,500, that really helped push things over the edge." I watched Darnell's face as he realized what I was saying. I watched him understand that I knew, that I had always known. "Mama, listen," he started. I held up my hand. "No, son. You're going to listen to me now. For the first time in months, you're going to sit there and hear what I have to say." I stood up, all 5'3" of me, and I looked at my son and his wife with eyes that had seen too much heartbreak. "I know you took my ring. I know you pawned it and gave me a fraction of what you got for it. I know you've been circling around me like vultures, waiting for me to die or move out so you can get my house. I know all of it." Keisha started crying. Darnell looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Curtis had gone completely still. "But what you didn't know," I continued, my voice growing stronger, "is that I am Ada Mae Thornhill, daughter of sharecroppers, wife of Raymond Thornhill, and I have survived things that would have broken lesser people. You didn't know that when you hurt me, when you betrayed me, you didn't just hurt a helpless old woman. You hurt someone who knows how to fight back." Yvette cleared her throat. "Mrs. Thornhill, should I leave?" "No, baby. You stay right there. You're going to need to take notes." I turned back to my family. "Here's what's going to happen. This company is going to undergo some changes. I'm going to make sure it's run properly, that people are treated fairly, that it honors the legacy of people like Raymond who gave their lives to it." I paused, letting that sink in. "As for the three of you, we're going to have a very long conversation about your future here, because right now, your jobs are hanging by a thread thinner than the trust you broke." That's when Darnell stood up, anger finally breaking through his shock. "You can't do this! You can't threaten our jobs because you're mad about some ring." Some ring? My voice could have cut glass. That ring was the symbol of 43 years of love, of sacrifice, of a good man's devotion. And you stole it from me like I was nothing, like your father's memory was nothing. "We were going to tell you," Keisha sobbed. "We were desperate. We had bills. And I would have helped you," I shouted, surprising myself with the force of my own voice. "Like I always helped you. But you didn't ask. You stole. You lied. And then you stood in my house and smiled in my face while you gave me back my own money." The door to the conference room opened, and Julian Hayes walked in with another woman I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Thornhill," Julian said. "This is Detective Loretta Banks. She's here about the matter we discussed." My heart was pounding now, but I kept my face calm. "Thank you for coming, Detective." Detective Banks, a tall sister with kind eyes and a no-nonsense expression, looked at Darnell and Keisha. "I'm going to need to speak with you both about a reported theft. A ring pawned at Quality Pawn Shop on Fletcher Street approximately 8 months ago. The shop owner has confirmed that a Darnell Thornhill pawned a ring matching the description of the stolen item on September 26th. Darnell's face went gray. Mama, please. Please don't do this. And in that moment, looking at my son begging me not to hold him accountable for what he'd done, I felt something inside me crack wide open. All the grief, all the betrayal, all the loneliness of the past 3 years came flooding out. You did this, I said, my voice breaking. Not me, you. But even as I said it, even as I stood there with all the power in that room, I felt the weight of what came next pressing down on me. Because revenge isn't sweet. It's just necessary. And it was only beginning. Detective Banks stood there with her notepad, waiting for someone to speak. The silence in that conference room felt thick enough to choke on. Darnell was still staring at me with those pleading eyes, the same eyes that used to look up at me when he was a little boy and wanted me to fix something for him. But I wasn't here to fix things anymore. I was here for something else entirely. Detective, I said quietly, I need a moment with my family first. Can you give us 10 minutes? She looked at me carefully, then nodded. 10 minutes. I'll be right outside. She left, and Julian followed her out, closing the door behind them. Yvette stood up. I should also... Please stay, I said. You're HR. You need to hear this too. When we were settled again, I sat back down at the head of that table and looked at the 3 people who shared my blood. Darnell had his head in his hands. Keisha was still crying. Curtis looked angry, his jaw clenched tight. I didn't want it to come to this, I said. You need to understand that. When I discovered that ring was gone, when I knew in my heart what you'd done, I gave you a chance. I waited for you to tell me the truth. I waited for you to confess, to apologize, to show me that you understood what you'd taken from me. Mama, Darnell started. I'm talking, I said, and he went quiet. Instead, you came to my house with my own money and pretended to be generous. You looked me in my face and lied. And you kept lying for 8 months. Every Sunday dinner, every phone call, every time you asked me for help and I gave it to you, you were lying. We were ashamed, Keisha whispered. We wanted to tell you, but we were so ashamed. Ashamed enough to stop lying? Ashamed enough to try to make it right? I shook my head. No, you were just ashamed enough to keep taking from me while I grieved your father. Curtis finally spoke up. So what now? You're going to have your own son arrested? You're going to destroy your family over a ring? You destroyed this family, I said, looking him dead in the eye. The moment you all decided I was someone you could use instead of someone you should love. And don't think I don't know you were in on it too, Curtis. You were there that day they brought me the money. You stood in my living room and said nothing. Yvette was taking notes, her expression carefully neutral. I took a deep breath. Here's what's going to happen. Detective Banks is going to take your statement, Darnell. You're going to tell her the truth about what you did. All of it. Mama, I could go to jail. You could. That's what happens when you steal. I let that sit for a moment. But I'm not interested in seeing my son in prison. What I'm interested in is the truth. On record. Officially. I want you to admit what you did. And then what? Darnell asked, his voice small. And then we're going to talk about restitution. That ring was appraised at $8,000 when your father bought it. Adjusted for today, it's worth about $12,000. You gave me $1,500. You're going to pay back every penny of that $12,000. Keisha gasped. We don't have that kind of money. Then you'll make payments. I don't care if it takes you 20 years. You're going to pay back what you stole. I turned to Yvette. And as for their employment here, I want them both moved to different shifts. I don't want them working together anymore. Curtis, too. I want them separated and I want regular reports on their performance. Mama, please, Darnell said. Don't do this. We made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but we're still your children. Are you? The question hung in the air. Because my children, the ones I raised, would never have done this to me. I stood up, suddenly exhausted. You have 10 minutes to decide. Either you go out there and tell Detective Banks the truth, agree to pay restitution, and we handle this as a family matter, or I press full charges and let the legal system handle it. Your choice. I walked out of that conference room without looking back. Julian and Detective Banks were waiting in the hallway. Mrs. Thornhill? Julian asked. Are you all right? No, I said honestly. But I will be. 15 minutes later, Darnell came out and gave his statement to Detective Banks. He confessed to taking the ring from my house, pawning it for $3,500, and giving me back $1,500. The detective took it all down, and I signed a statement saying I wanted to pursue civil restitution rather than criminal charges, contingent on full repayment. When it was over, when the paperwork was signed and my son walked out of that building without looking at me, I felt hollow. Julian drove me home. We didn't talk much during the ride, but when we pulled up to my house, he turned to me. Mrs. Thornhill, what you did today took incredible courage. Did it? I asked. Or did I just become the kind of person who uses power to hurt their own family? You used power to demand accountability, he said gently. There's a difference. I went inside my empty house and sat in Raymond's chair. The afternoon light was coming through the windows, falling across the floor in golden strips. This was usually my favorite time of day, but right now everything felt heavy. My phone rang. It was Shanice. Mama, what did you do? Her voice was shrill, angry. Darnell just called me crying. He said you bought his company and had the police there and you're ruining his life. Is that what he told you? He said you're punishing him over some misunderstanding about a ring. A misunderstanding. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what we're calling theft now? Mama, he was desperate. They had bills, they had debt, they didn't know what else to do. So he stole from me. He stole the ring your father gave me, Shanice. Your father's wedding ring to me. And he lied about it for 8 months. There was silence on the other line. You knew, I said, the realization hitting me. Oh God, you knew. Mama, how long have you known? More silence, which was answer enough. Get off my phone, I said quietly. Mama, please. I hung up. Then I turned my phone off completely and sat in the silence of my house. The house I'd shared with Raymond. The house where I'd raised children who I thought I knew. I must have sat there for hours, because the next thing I knew, someone was knocking on my door and the sun had set. I got up, my joints stiff, and looked through the peephole. It was Wanda and Gladys. I let them in, and Wanda took one look at me and pulled me into a hug. That's when I finally cried. I cried for Raymond, for my broken family, for the grandmother I used to be before I became this person who had to fight her own children. Let it out, baby, Wanda murmured, rubbing my back. Let it all out. When I finally pulled myself together, we sat in my kitchen and I told them everything that had happened. Gladys made tea. Wanda held my hand. You did the right thing, Gladys said firmly. What they did was wrong, Ada. You had every right to hold them accountable. But they're my children, I said. I brought them into this world. I raised them. Where did I go wrong? You didn't go wrong, Wanda said. Sometimes people make bad choices, and that's on them, not you. You were a good mother. You are a good mother. But being a good mother doesn't mean letting your children walk all over you. Shanice knew, I said. She knew what Darnell did, and she never told me. Then she's just as guilty, Gladys said. I'm sorry, Ada, but that's the truth. We sat there together until late into the night, my two friends who had been by my side through everything. When they finally left, Wanda made me promise to call if I needed anything. I went to bed but couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Darnell's face in that conference room, heard Shanice's voice on the phone. Around 2 a.m, I got up and went to my dresser, to Raymond's picture. Did I do right, baby? I asked his smiling face. Tell me I did right. But Raymond couldn't answer, and I was left alone with my choices. The next morning was Sunday. I almost didn't go to church, didn't want to face people, didn't want to pretend everything was fine. But I'd been going to New Hope Baptist for 40 years, and I wasn't about to let my children's betrayal take that from me too. I got dressed, put on my good blue dress and my hat, and drove to church. The moment I walked in, I knew something was wrong. People were looking at me, whispering. Sister Caroline, who usually greeted everyone with a big smile, just nodded stiffly. Brother Marcus, who always saved me a seat, was sitting with his family and didn't make eye contact. I sat down in a pew by myself, feeling the weight of all those eyes on me. Pastor Williams preached about forgiveness that morning, about how we're called to forgive those who trespass against us, how holding on to anger only hurts ourselves, how family is everything, and we need to protect it. Every word felt aimed at me. After service, I was heading to my car when I heard someone call my name. I turned around to see Shanice walking toward me, and she wasn't alone. She had my grandbabies with her, Aaliyah and little Kamari. "Mama," she said, and her eyes were red from crying. "Can we talk?" I looked at my grandchildren, at Aaliyah, who was 12 and trying to look brave, at Kamari, who was only 6, and confused about why Grandma and Mama were upset. "Not here," I said. "Come to the house." We drove separately, and when we got to my house, I set the kids up in the living room with the TV on and some cookies. Then Shanice and I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd fed her family just months ago while they lied to me. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "Mama, I'm so sorry. I should have told you what Darnell did. I knew it was wrong, but he's my brother and he begged me not to say anything." "When did you find out?" "A week after he did it. Keisha told me. She felt guilty, and she wanted someone to talk to." Shanice wiped her eyes. "I told them to tell you, to come clean. But Darnell said you'd never forgive him. He said it was better to just give you some money and pretend it never happened. And you went along with that. I was wrong. I know I was wrong, but Mama, I never took anything from you. I never lied to you directly. I just didn't tell you the truth." "That's the same thing, baby," I said sadly. "That's the same thing." "I know. I know that now." She reached across the table for my hand, but I pulled back. She flinched like I'd slapped her. "Mama, please. I'm trying to make this right." "How? How are you going to make this right?" "I don't know. But please don't punish my children for what I did. They love you. Aaliyah keeps asking why we can't come see Grandma anymore. Kamari cries for you at night." That hit me right in the heart. "I'm not keeping you from bringing them here." "Aren't you? Mama, you bought the company where Darnell works. You had the police there. The whole family is talking about how you're destroying Darnell over a mistake. People at church are saying you're being vindictive and cruel." "Is that what you think?" "No. I think you're hurt, and you have every right to be. But I also think this is tearing our family apart, and I don't know how to fix it." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was 42 years old, but right then she looked like the little girl who used to climb into my lap when she was scared. "Do you know what the worst part is?" I asked. "It's not the ring. It's not even the lying. It's that you all looked at me and saw someone you could use. Someone weak, someone helpless, someone who wouldn't fight back. Your father spent his whole life teaching you to be strong, to be honest, to stand up for what's right. And you all forgot those lessons the moment it was inconvenient." "We didn't see you as weak," Shanice protested. "Then what did you see? Because from where I'm sitting, you saw a lonely old woman you could manipulate. That's not fair." "Fair?" I stood up, my voice rising. "You want to talk about fair? Was it fair that I buried the love of my life and then got robbed by my own children? Was it fair that I cried myself to sleep because I thought I'd lost the last piece of my husband, while you all knew exactly where it was? Was it fair that you let me suffer for 8 months?" Shanice was crying now, hard sobs that shook her shoulders. From the living room, I heard Kamari call out, "Mama? Why are you crying?" I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. "Go take care of your children," I said quietly. "We'll talk another time." "Mama, please." "Go, Shanice." She stood up, wiping her face. "I love you, Mama. I know you don't believe that right now, but I do. And I'm going to prove it to you." After they left, I sat in that kitchen alone and wondered how my life had come to this. 3 years ago, I'd had a husband, a family, a community that loved me. Now I had money and power and the hollow victory of revenge. That week, things at Morrison Shipping Company got complicated. Yvette called to tell me that there had been complaints filed against me for nepotism and unfair treatment. Several employees had signed a petition saying I was using my position as owner to target family members. "They're saying you're creating a hostile work environment," Yvette explained. "Mrs. Thornhill, I need to be honest with you. This could become a legal issue if we're not careful." I met with Julian, and he walked me through my options. "You have every right to run your company as you see fit within legal bounds. But if employees can prove you're discriminating or creating a hostile environment, it could be a problem." "I'm not discriminating. I'm holding my son accountable for stealing from me." "I know that. You know that. But legally, it's complicated. My advice? Back off a little on the work side. Keep the personal and professional separate. Pursue the restitution privately, but don't use your position at the company as leverage." It made sense, but it also felt like I was losing ground. Then things got worse. 2 weeks after the confrontation, I got a call from my lawyer about a different matter entirely. Darnell and Shanice were filing a petition to have me evaluated for mental competency. "They're claiming that your recent actions, buying the company, the confrontation, all of it, indicates that you're not of sound mind," Julian explained, his voice tight with anger. "They're saying you're elderly and grief-stricken and making irrational financial decisions." I couldn't breathe. "They're trying to take my power of attorney." "That's exactly what they're trying to do. If they succeed, they could take control of your finances, your property, everything." "Can they do that?" "They can try. But Mrs. Thornhill, I've worked with you for months now. You're one of the sharpest people I know. We'll fight this, and we'll win." But even as he said it, I felt the fear creeping in. Because this was different from buying a company or demanding restitution. This was my children trying to declare me incompetent, trying to take away my autonomy, my independence, everything I was. This was war. I called an emergency meeting with Wanda and Gladys. We met at Wanda's house, and I showed them the paperwork. "They've lost their minds," Gladys said, scanning the documents. "This is ridiculous. You're competent as anyone I know." "But what if the court doesn't see it that way?" I asked. "What if they look at me, a 75-year-old widow, and decide my children are right?" "Then we get evidence," Wanda said firmly. "We document everything. We show the court that you're sharp, capable, and fully aware of what you're doing." "We need character witnesses," Gladys added. "People who can testify to your mental state. Your doctor, your pastor, people from church." I thought about the cold looks at church, the whispers. "I don't know if Pastor Williams will help me. You heard his sermon last Sunday." "Then we find people who will," Wanda said. "Ada, you're not alone in this. We're going to fight this together." Over the next few days, we put together a plan. I went to my doctor and had a full cognitive evaluation. I scored perfectly on every test. I gathered my financial records to show that my decision to buy Morrison Shipping wasn't irrational, but a calculated investment. Julian prepared a defense that would make it clear I was acting out of sound judgment, not grief-addled confusion. But in the quiet moments, alone in my house, I wondered if my children were right. Not about the competency, but about what I'd become. Had grief changed me into someone I didn't recognize? Had I let revenge turn me into the villain of my own family's story? I was sitting in Raymond's chair, wrestling with these thoughts, when there was a knock at my door. It was late, almost 9 o'clock. I looked through the peephole and saw Darnell. He was alone, and he looked terrible. His eyes were swollen, his clothes wrinkled like he'd been wearing them for days. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "Mama," he said, his voice breaking. "Please, I need to talk to you." I stepped back and let him in. We stood in the entryway, neither of us moving toward the living room, toward comfort. "I'm withdrawing the petition," he said. "The competency thing. I'm telling them I don't want to do it." "Why?" "Because it's wrong. Because you're not incompetent and I know it. I was angry and scared and Keisha kept saying we needed to protect ourselves, but..." He ran his hand over his face. "This isn't who I am. This isn't who Daddy raised me to be." "Your father would be ashamed of you," I said, and watched those words hit him like a physical blow. I know he would." Darnell's shoulders started shaking. "Mama, I am so sorry. I am so sorry for everything. For taking the ring, for lying, for trying to hurt you. I don't know what happened to me. I don't know how I became this person." "You became this person when you decided money was more important than family," I said. "When you looked at your mother and saw a bank instead of a person." "You're right." "You're completely right." He sank down onto the floor, right there in the entryway, and put his head in his hands. "I destroyed everything. My relationship with you, my family, my integrity. And for what? For $3,500 that's already gone." I stood there looking at my son on my floor, and I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to pull him up and hold him like I did when he was a child. But another part of me, the part that had been betrayed and hurt, stayed frozen. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I don't know. Forgiveness, maybe? Or just a chance to make things right. I'm paying back the money, every penny. I got a second job, and Keisha's working extra shifts. It's going to take years. But I'm going to do it." "Good. And I want you to know something." He looked up at me with Raymond's eyes. "The reason I took the ring, it wasn't just about money. I was angry. Angry that Daddy left us. Angry that you seemed fine when I was falling apart. Angry that you had this thing from him, this symbol of your love, when all I had was memories and an empty space where my father used to be." This was the truth I'd been waiting for, the real reason beneath all the lies. "So you took it from me," I said softly. "You took my symbol because you didn't have one of your own." I'm not saying it was right. It was terrible. But yes, that's why. And I've regretted it every single day since. I sat down on the stairs, suddenly too tired to stand. "Your father loved you, Darnell. He loved you so much. And you dishonored his memory when you did this." "I know." We sat there in silence, mother and son, separated by betrayal but connected by blood and history and 43 years of life together. Finally, I spoke. "I'll accept your apology, but I can't forgive you yet. I don't know if I ever can. You broke something between us, and I don't know if it can be fixed." "I understand. And you need to make things right with your sister, too. She's in this mess because she tried to protect you." He nodded. "I will. Now go home. I'm tired." He stood up, hesitated like he wanted to hug me, then thought better of it. "Thank you for listening, Mama." After he left, I locked the door and went to my bedroom. I looked at Raymond's picture, at the empty spot where the ring box used to sit. "I'm trying, baby," I whispered. "I'm trying to do this right, but I don't know what that means anymore." The next day, I got a call that would change everything again. It was Yvette from Morrison Shipping. "Mrs. Thornhill, we have a situation. There's been an accident at the warehouse. Curtis Wade was involved. It's serious." My heart dropped. "How serious?" "He's alive, but he's in the hospital. And Mrs. Thornhill, the preliminary investigation suggests the safety equipment he was using had been tampered with." "Tampered with?" "The safety harness was cut. Not worn through, not damaged naturally, cut. And there are witnesses who say they saw someone in the warehouse early this morning, before the shift started. Someone who shouldn't have been there. I felt cold all over. Who? The security footage is being reviewed now. But Mrs. Thornhill. This is a police matter. They're on their way. I hung up and sat down hard, my mind racing. Curtis was in the hospital. Someone had cut his safety equipment. Someone had tried to hurt him, maybe kill him. And the first thought that went through my mind, the thought that made me feel sick to my soul, was, did Darnell do this? Did my confrontation, my demand for justice, my whole revenge plan push my son so far that he would try to hurt someone? I grabbed my purse and headed for the hospital, my hands shaking on the wheel. This had gone too far. Whatever I'd started when I bought that company, whatever chain of events I'd set in motion, it had spiraled into something dangerous, and I had to stop it before someone ended up dead. I got to County General Hospital and went straight to the ICU. Shanice was already there in the waiting room, her face pale and drawn. When she saw me, she stood up. "Mama, thank God you're here." "How is he?" "Broken leg, fractured ribs, concussion. The doctors say he's lucky to be alive. If he'd fallen from any higher—" She couldn't finish the sentence. I sat down next to her, and for a moment we just sat there, in that sterile waiting room with its fluorescent lights and sanitizer smell. "The police are here," Shanice said quietly. "They're saying someone cut his harness. Mama, they're investigating it as attempted murder." My stomach turned. "Have they said anything about suspects?" She looked at me, and I saw the fear in her eyes. "They talked to Darnell first. They know about everything that's happened, about the family conflict. Mama, they think one of us did this." Before I could respond, 2 detectives came around the corner. One was Detective Banks, who I recognized from the ring incident. The other was a black man in his 50s who introduced himself as Detective Raymond Coleman. The coincidence of his name hit me hard. Raymond. "Mrs. Thornhill," Detective Coleman said, "we need to ask you some questions about what happened at Morrison Shipping Company this morning." We went to a private consultation room, and they asked me about my purchase of the company, about the conflict with my family, about who might have had access to the warehouse. I told them everything truthfully. "Where were you this morning between 5 and 7 a.m.? Detective Banks asked. "At home? Asleep? Can anyone verify that?" "No. I live alone." They exchanged a look that made my blood run cold. "Mrs. Thornhill, we need to be direct with you. You had motive to harm Mr. Wade. The family conflict, the business situation. You think I did this?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You think I tried to kill my son-in-law?" "We're exploring all possibilities," Detective Coleman said, his voice gentler. "Can you think of anyone else who might have wanted to hurt Mr. Wade?" I thought about it. Curtis wasn't well liked at the company, according to the reports Yvette had been giving me. He had a temper, got into arguments with other workers. But attempted murder? "No," I said. "I can't think of anyone." They let me go, but I could tell I was a suspect. Me, Ada Mae Thornhill, who had never hurt anyone in my life, was being investigated for attempted murder. I went back to the waiting room where Shanice was now joined by Darnell and Keisha. When Darnell saw me, he stood up. "Mama, they think we had something to do with this. All of us. They're treating this like it's some kind of family revenge thing gone wrong." "Well, isn't it?" The voice came from behind me. I turned to see Curtis's brother, Malcolm Wade, walking toward us. He was a bigger man than Curtis, with hard eyes and harder fists. "You people have been tearing each other apart for months. Now my brother's lying in a hospital bed because of it." "We don't know what happened yet," I said firmly. "I know exactly what happened. You bought that company to punish your family. You created a hostile environment, and now someone's been hurt. If Curtis doesn't make it, that's on all of you." A nurse came out before things could escalate further. "Family of Curtis Wade?" We all turned. Shanice stepped forward. "I'm his wife. He's awake and asking for you. Just immediate family for now." Shanice went back, and the rest of us were left in that waiting room with Malcolm glaring at us like we were murderers. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked out, got in my car, and drove. I didn't know where I was going until I ended up at New Hope Baptist Church. It was Wednesday, midday, and the church was empty except for Pastor Williams in his office. I knocked on his door, and when he looked up and saw me, his expression was complicated. "Sister Ada, come in." I sat down in the chair across from his desk. "I need prayer, Pastor. I need guidance. Because I don't know what I'm doing anymore." He folded his hands and looked at me for a long moment. "I've been waiting for you to come talk to me. I know you've heard things about me and my family. I've heard a lot of things, some from your children, some from other church members. Everyone has a version of events. And what do you think?" I asked. "Do you think I'm in the wrong?" Pastor Williams leaned back in his chair. "I think you're a woman who's been hurt deeply by people you love. I think you responded to that hurt with power instead of grace. And I think now you're discovering that power without wisdom leads to destruction." His words cut deep, but I needed to hear them. "That sermon on Sunday," I said, "about forgiveness, that was for me, wasn't it?" "It was for everyone who needs to hear it. But yes, I was thinking of your situation." "I don't know how to forgive them, Pastor. They stole from me, they lied to me, and now Curtis is in the hospital and the police think my family had something to do with it." "Did you?" "No, of course not." "Then trust that the truth will come out." He leaned forward. "Ada, I've known you for 40 years. You're one of the strongest women in this church. But strength isn't about revenge or control. It's about standing firm in your faith even when everything around you is falling apart." "I feel like I've lost everything. My husband, my children, my place in this community." "You've lost your way," he corrected gently. "But you haven't lost everything. God is still with you. Your true friends are still with you. And your family, as broken as it is right now, is still your family." I left that office with no easy answers, but with a little more peace than I'd had when I walked in. 2 days later, Detective Coleman called me. "Mrs. Thornhill, can you come down to the station? We have some new information." I met him there with Julian by my side. They took us into an interview room, and Detective Banks pulled up security footage on a laptop. "This is from the Morrison shipping warehouse, the morning of the incident," she explained. The timestamp showed 5:47 a.m. The footage was grainy, but clear enough to see a figure moving through the warehouse toward the equipment area. "We've identified the person," Detective Coleman said. "It wasn't family. It was another employee, a man named Vernon Briggs. He'd been written up several times for safety violations and was about to be fired. Mr. Wade was his supervisor and had filed the complaints against him." Relief flooded through me. "So this had nothing to do with our family situation?" "Not directly, but here's where it gets complicated." He pulled up another document. "Mr. Briggs told us in his interview that he got the idea because of all the talk at the company about family drama and revenge. He said if the boss lady could use the company to go after her family, he could use it to go after Curtis Wade." I felt sick. "So I inspired this?" "You didn't cut that harness," Julian said firmly. "Vernon Briggs did. He's responsible for his own actions." "But the environment at the company—" I trailed off. "Mrs. Thornhill, Mr. Briggs is being charged with attempted murder," Detective Coleman said. "You're not being charged with anything. But I'll be honest with you. The DA is concerned about the workplace situation. They're looking into whether there are broader issues at Morrison Shipping that contributed to this incident." After we left the police station, Julian and I sat in his car in the parking lot. "What do I do now?" I asked. "That depends. What do you want?" I thought about that question. What did I want? Justice? I'd gotten that, or at least started the process. Revenge? I'd had it, and it tasted like ash. My family back? That seemed impossible now. "I want peace," I said finally. "I want to be able to sleep at night. I want to remember Raymond without all this pain attached to it." "Then maybe it's time to make some changes," Julian said. Over the next week, I did a lot of thinking and praying. Curtis recovered and was released from the hospital. Vernon Briggs was formally charged and held without bail. And I made some decisions. I called a family meeting at my house. Darnell, Keisha, Shanice, and Curtis all came, though they looked nervous about it. We sat in my living room and I looked at each of them. "I've made some decisions about Morrison Shipping Company," I said. "I'm restructuring the management and bringing in professional leadership. And I'm setting up a trust that will distribute shares of the company to employees who've been there more than 5 years, including the 3 of you." They looked shocked. "I'm not doing this out of forgiveness," I continued. "I'm doing it because I bought that company for the wrong reasons. I bought it to hurt you, to control you, to get revenge. And in doing that, I created an environment where someone else got hurt. That's on me." "Mama," Darnell started. "Let me finish. I'm also requiring that all of you undergo mediation and counseling as a condition of keeping your shares. Not just about what happened between us, but about your relationships, your finances, your choices. Because what happened with the ring wasn't just about money. It was about deeper problems in this family that we've been ignoring." Shanice was crying. "Are you saying you forgive us?" "I'm saying I'm trying to. I'm saying I can't keep carrying this anger because it's destroying me and everyone around me." But forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, and it isn't the same as going back to how things were. "What does that mean for us?" Curtis asked quietly. "It means we start over. Slowly, with boundaries and honesty. It means you pay back what you owe. You do the work to rebuild trust, and I do the work to let you try." "And if we can't?" Keisha asked. "If it's too broken? Then at least we'll know we tried." The next Sunday, I went to church. Pastor Williams preached about restoration, about how God can rebuild what's been torn down. After the service, several people came up to me, people who'd been giving me the cold shoulder for weeks. Sister Caroline hugged me. "We didn't understand what you'd been going through," she said. "Shanice told us everything, about the ring, about all of it. I'm so sorry we judged you." It wasn't complete restoration, but it was a start. 3 months later, I was sitting on my porch on a Sunday afternoon when a car pulled up. Darnell got out, and he was carrying something. He walked up to the porch, and I saw that he was crying. "What's wrong?" I asked, standing up. "Nothing's wrong, Mama. Everything's right." He opened his hand, and there in his palm was a ring. Not my original ring, but one very similar to it. Gold band, 3 small diamonds. "I found the pawn shop that bought your ring from me. They'd already sold it, and I couldn't get it back. But I worked with a jeweler, showed them pictures from your wedding day, and had this made. It's as close as I could get." I took the ring with shaking hands. It wasn't Raymond's ring, but it was beautiful. "The original cost $12,000, Darnell continued. "I've paid back $7,000 so far. I'm on track to have the full amount paid back in another 18 months. But I wanted you to have this now, because you shouldn't have to look at that empty space on your dresser anymore." I looked at my son, at the man who had hurt me so deeply, but who was trying, really trying to make things right. "Thank you," I whispered. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak, and left. That night, I put the new ring in the wooden box next to Raymond's picture. It wasn't the same. It would never be the same. But it was something. A symbol not just of what I'd lost, but of what might be rebuilt. 2 weeks after that, I got a call from Julian. "Mrs. Thornhill, you need to see this." I met him at his office, and he showed me the quarterly reports from Morrison Shipping Company. Under the new management, the company was thriving. Revenue was up, safety incidents were down, and employee satisfaction had improved significantly. "You did this," Julian said. "You bought a struggling company, removed the corruption and mismanagement, and turned it into something good. That's not revenge, Ada. That's legacy." "Raymond would have liked that," I said softly. I think he would have been proud of you, not just for this, but for everything. For standing up for yourself, for holding people accountable, and for choosing healing over hatred in the end. A year after I bought Morrison Shipping Company, we had our first company picnic. It was Wanda's idea, actually. She said the employees needed to see me as a person, not just a name on paperwork. I almost didn't go, but Gladys insisted. The picnic was at Riverside Park, the same place where Raymond and I used to take the kids when they were little. There were games and food, music and laughter. I walked around, meeting employees, hearing their stories, seeing their families. Darnell and Keisha were there with my grandson Zion, who was now 16 and helping run the basketball tournament. Shanice was there with Aaliyah and Kamari. Curtis was there too, fully recovered, with a slight limp that would probably never go away but alive and working and present. We weren't a perfect family. We probably never would be. But we were there, together, trying. Aaliyah ran up to me with Kamari in tow. "Grandma! Come play cornhole with us!" I let my granddaughter pull me over to the games, and for the first time in years, I felt something close to joy. Later, as the sun was setting and families were packing up to leave, Darnell came and sat next to me on a bench. "This is nice," he said. "It is. Daddy would have loved this, all his company people, all together like family." "He would have," I agreed. "Mama, I know I say this a lot, but I really am sorry. For everything." I looked at my son. "I know you are, and I'm working on fully forgiving you. Some days are easier than others." "That's fair." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Kamari chase butterflies across the grass. "You know what the crazy thing is?" Darnell said. "You bought the company to get revenge on us, but you ended up saving it. You saved a lot of people's jobs, their livelihoods, including ours." "Sometimes God uses our worst intentions for his best purposes," I said, echoing something Pastor Williams had told me. "Mama, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Do you think you'll ever wear the new ring? Not just keep it in the box, but actually wear it?" I thought about that. Maybe someday, when it feels right. When I can look at it and remember love instead of loss. I hope that day comes soon. Me too, baby. Me too. As I drove home that evening, past the church where I'd married Raymond, past the house where we'd raised our children, past all the familiar landmarks of a life well lived, I realized something. I had set out to buy a company to punish my children. But what I'd actually done was buy back my own power, my own voice, my own sense of worth. The ring was never really about the ring. It was about respect, about being seen, about refusing to be invisible or disposable just because I was old and widowed and female. And yes, I'd made mistakes along the way. I'd let revenge cloud my judgment. I'd created situations that hurt people. But I'd also stood up for myself in a way I'd never done before. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a moment, looking at the house I'd shared with Raymond for so many years. "I did it, baby," I said to his memory. "I fought back. Maybe not perfectly, but I fought, and I'm still standing." Inside, I went to my bedroom and opened the wooden box. The new ring gleamed in the lamplight. I took it out and, for the first time, slipped it onto my finger. It fit perfectly. I looked at Raymond's picture. "I'm going to be okay," I told him. "It's going to take time, and it's going to be hard, but I'm going to be okay." And for the first time since he died, I truly believed it. The next morning, I got up early and made breakfast. Then I called Wanda and Gladys and invited them over for coffee and planning. "Planning for what?" Wanda asked. "I'm thinking about starting a foundation," I said, using some of the profits from Morrison Shipping to help other widows who are being taken advantage of by family members, legal aid, financial counseling, support groups. "Ada Mae Thornhill," Gladys said with a smile in her voice. "That's a beautiful idea." Raymond always said that when God blesses you, you bless others. It's time I started living that out. We spent that morning planning, dreaming, building something new from the ashes of what had been burned down. And as I sat there with my two best friends, drinking coffee and making plans to help other women find their strength, I realized that this was the real victory. Not revenge, not control, not even justice. The real victory was refusing to let betrayal make me bitter. It was choosing to build instead of destroy. It was taking the worst thing that had happened to me and using it to create something good. 6 months later, the Ada and Raymond Thornhill Foundation opened its doors. We helped 3 women in the first month alone, women who were being financially exploited by family members, who felt powerless and alone. One of them was a 72-year-old woman named Loretta, whose grandson had stolen her identity and racked up debt in her name. We got her a lawyer, helped her clear her name, and set up protections so it couldn't happen again. When she came to thank me, with tears in her eyes, I understood why God had allowed me to go through what I went through. So I could be here for her. So I could say, I understand. I've been there. And you're going to get through this. My relationship with my children is still complicated. We have good days and hard days. They're still in counseling, still working on their issues. I'm still working on forgiveness. But we have family dinners once a month now. The grandchildren come over every Sunday after church. And slowly, painfully, honestly, we're rebuilding something real. It's not the family we were before. We can't go back to that innocence, that blind trust. But maybe what we're building now is stronger because it's built on truth instead of assumption, on boundaries instead of obligation, on chosen love instead of expected love. I'm 76 now. I still live in the house Raymond and I bought all those years ago. I still go to New Hope Baptist every Sunday. I still have coffee with Wanda and Gladys every Wednesday. But I also run a foundation. I sit on the board of Morrison Shipping Company. I speak at women's groups about finding your strength at any age. I'm not just Raymond's widow anymore, or Darnell and Shanice's mother, or the grandmother who bakes cookies and stays quiet. I'm Ada Mae Thornhill. I'm a businesswoman, an advocate, a survivor, a fighter. And when I look at the ring on my finger now, the ring I wear every single day, I see more than Raymond's love. I see my own strength. I see what I overcame. I see what I built. My family sold my wedding ring for cash. So I used the money they gave me, along with everything Raymond and I had built together, to buy the company they worked for. But what I really bought was my freedom, my voice, my future. And that, I'm learning, is priceless. Thank you for staying with us through this journey. Please subscribe for more stories and drop a comment. We read every single one.